In the best of times, it's hard to get a new idea off the ground.
Try to convert non-customers into the customers.
Add pandemic disruptions to the mix and systems that cannot cope.
The networks that have been built were not handled to accommodate this traffic.
Some see an opportunity.
The lessons of the pandemic have been, in a way, a reaffirmation of our architectural philosophy.
But what are some of the key risks to consider as they plan for the future? According to EY, over 70% surveyed highlighted changes in customer behavior. This was followed by capital constraints.
Customer adoption. It's always been a more difficult area to forecast, particularly for new technologies.
New ideas. Uncharted territory. Can companies flourish?
We have a laser transmitter which transmits the laser light, and then it travels through the data path, and in the end we have our own detector which detects the laser light. And using the setup we can send really high bandwidth data at ultra fast speeds.
This revolutionary laser communication system is potentially going to change the entire planet's internet connectivity.
As part of the COVID scenario, people have started working from home. By far the biggest application is video conferencing, right? Everyone's doing that. The networks that have been built were not handled to accommodate this traffic. Generally, every country on the planet has seen a growth in almost 40 to 60% growth in the last pre versus post-COVID era.
99% of the world's data is channeled through massive undersea cables connecting one country to another. Once data arrives at the landing stations of each country, it is usually distributed through land-based fiber optic cables to major population hubs. The third and final step is referred to as last-mile connectivity. Transcelestial is using its proprietary laser communication technology to expand last-mile connectivity to overcome bottlenecks.
Putting new fibers in the ground is very expensive. It takes a lot of time and it's difficult to do. Our solution replaces the need to lay new fiber optic lines, and instead we can just use a pair of our Centauri devices to connect point A to point B using a laser link, which acts like a wireless fiber optic cable. Laser communications opens up a part of the spectrum that was previously completely unused. And this part is nearly 1 million times larger than what was available in RF and standard radio wave communication systems and our standard wireless communication systems. That's why it's going to be the future of connectivity, because of this huge amount of untapped bandwidth that it's using.
Transcelestial is exploring a new market space where there is little to no competition.
What this company tries to address is the pain points of the users when they cannot access the internet, or maybe the internet connection is very bad. Once the technology is mature, once the business model is well developed, actually it has the potential to address maybe more than 50% of the non-customers. At the current moment, for many reasons that they cannot access the internet connection. It could be in the rural areas in India, it could be rural places like in China.
This pursuit of unknown market space is one of the characteristics of a blue ocean strategy.
The blue ocean idea needs to challenge the conventional wisdom of doing the business in an existing industry. Its focus is new market space. It's trying to convert some of what we call its non-customers into the customers or the potential buyers. You need to achieve both. One is lower cost structure, and the second is higher value or higher differentiation.
Another startup that's trying to tap into unknown market space is F-Drones. It's just over a year old, and it crossed a major milestone during the pandemic. In April, F. Jones says it became the first in Singapore to be allowed to operate a commercial beyond visual line of sight drone delivery.
Powering up.
That means the drone is flown beyond the visual range of the pilot. The pilot views and maneuvers from the ground.
So it took us about 6 to 7 months to get our beyond visual line of sight drone delivery permits. And for a startup which had no previous operational track record, it was actually already considered quite fast at a global level.
Drones are not new to the market. The first use of drones for non-military ventures started in 2006, but the ability to fly drones beyond the visual line of sight for deliveries is still in its infancy. According to research in 2018 in the US, 99% of applications for permits for such flights were rejected. F. Jones is focusing its delivery services on the marine and offshore sector. With the strict border controls in place during the pandemic, people movement posed a big challenge for the maritime industry.
Sometimes they need urgent spares, sometimes they require urgent documents to be sent to them. Rule change is currently not allowed in a way in many parts of the world. Drones actually have the ability to help send some of these critical items and medical supplies to these vessels. There was a lot of interest when we first started operations in late April, and that was actually when COVID started to hit different parts of the world. We received a lot of interest from Singapore, including the Port of Rotterdam, Panama, Gibraltar.
Innovative ideas are not limited to the tech industry.
For travelers or customers, when they go to Jewel Changi Airport, perhaps 90 or 99% of them they don't know what is the blue ocean strategy. But they make the decision to go to the Jewel Changi because that place have a combination of the different things that can fulfill their needs.
Jewel Changi Airport in Singapore was designed by award-winning architect Moshe Safdie.
I think that not only airports are stressful, but travel is generally stressful. And that was also very much a factor in our choosing the magical garden as the main attraction. It should be about calmness. It should be about soothing the nerves. It should be about serenity. It was reinventing retail at the same time. It was reinventing what urban retail can be like.
Charu Kokate is a partner at Safdie Architects. She oversaw the design, integration, and construction of Jewel Changi Airport.
In order for people to feel comfortable, you have to create spaces that are cozy. It's the comfort of having, oh, this is my space and I'm going to watch it from here. That's very comfortable without anybody encroaching it.
Even though Jewel Changi Airport was designed pre-COVID-19, Charu feels that the numerous smaller spaces help with safe distancing in times of the pandemic.
People want to be isolated, separated from the crowd. These spaces help do that because you're separated from hundreds of people standing in the center.
Pandemic disruptions and innovation.
We came up with a bunch of tools that allow us to remotely deploy our devices in overseas countries.
It's become even more important to exercise what we call dynamic scenario planning.
The disruptions and challenges companies have faced in 2020 have been unprecedented. But there are still some trying to launch or test new products. F. Jones is a pioneer in aerial deliveries for the maritime sector in Singapore.
So this is an off-the-shelf drone that we bought. It's one of the best that we can find off the market that can deliver 5 kilograms over 5 kilometers. We've just did some simple modifications like putting in this carbon fiber payload bay as well as the camera system so that the drone pilot can see where it's going.
But in March, F. Jones suffered a major setback when a lead investor withdrew funding in the wake of uncertainties surrounding the pandemic.
That really affected a lot of our plans. We were actually supposed to spend about 3 months in Rotterdam to explore Rotterdam as a second market after Singapore. But because of the pandemic and the investor pulling out, we had to shelve that. One of the first things that we had to ask ourselves was whether to reduce the size of our team, because back then we only had enough cash for us to last until May or June. It was important for us to demonstrate that our proprietary drone design, our proprietary drone aircraft can do what it says it can do. We made a collective decision where everyone would take a very significant pay cut so that we could extend our runway by a couple of months to be able to have the time and resources to develop our proprietary drone and fly it. As a startup, it's important to really prove the market as quickly as you can.
In October, F. Jones secured a new lead investor from the maritime industry.
This fresh funding will help us to accelerate our product development, and we hope that by the end of next year, we would have 3 of our proprietary aircraft that can deliver 5 kilograms over 50 kilometers, operating not just in Singapore, but also in 1 or 2 ports outside of Singapore.
New funding will also allow F. Jones to prepare for another disruption.
We want to very much make sure that no matter what happens, even if there is to be another lockdown in Singapore or in India, our aircraft development, our flight tests can continue. So now we are actually procuring items that we need a lot more in advance than what we did previously, where we would only buy something when we need it.
Securing funding is a major feat in these uncertain times. Transcelestial is one of the successful ones. The Singapore-based deep tech startup managed to raise a whopping $9.6 million in July and another $2 million in November. This is 84% more than what they raised in their seed round in 2018.
Our investors, every one of them, joined us not for short-term impacts, but in reality, they are looking for like the 5-year, the 10-year time scale.
Transcelestial has been on a mission to work with telcos to deliver ultra-fast internet and at a fraction of usual costs. In Singapore, companies typically spend between $50,000 and $200,000 for every kilometer of fiber optic cable installed in the ground. Transcelestial's network device can be installed in as little as 10 minutes. The device uses the startup's proprietary wireless laser communication technology.
All right.
The global lockdown, however, affected their ability to ramp up their efforts.
There was a lot of more interest in the technology and what it can achieve because of these unique situations that were arising and the need for higher bandwidth. But unfortunately, we had challenges with our engineers traveling around to deploy our technology. We also had challenges in our production line simply because during the pandemic, the global supply chain and logistic channels slowed down considerably.
What all businesses are afraid right now of is the possibility of having a second or a third wave of COVID. We have spent the last couple of months really thinking into diversifying our supply chain. And as of today, we have very, very diverse supply chain from all around the world.
We have our production line up, we have devices which are ready, and we have much more experience. We came up with a bunch of tools that allow us to remotely deploy our devices in overseas countries without us physically having to be there.
What's changed in recent times is that it's become even more important to exercise what we call dynamic scenario planning because of the volatility environment. I think the companies that are adaptable and resilient, and those are the ones that will really thrive a lot better.
The coronavirus has encouraged discussions on how architecture needs to be reshaped in the future.
We are working on a project right now which is under construction, Sabana Jurong campus. And instead of designing massive 2 towers, we spread out the buildings. We've created this 10 pavilion kind of buildings. They're like 5-story, 7-story buildings. And they're linked by a glazed spine. And between the buildings, we've created these atrium spaces, gardens, which allow natural light coming through like what you see in Jewel.
Award-winning architect Moshe Safdie sees the COVID-19 landscape as an opportunity to build on his philosophy.
50 years ago, when I built Habitat, I said every house should have a garden, every apartment should have an outdoor space. And this sounded kind of a luxurious fantasy of some architect. But I know now people who lived in luxury apartments in New York, friends would call me and say, you know, I'm living in this fancy building. I have no outdoor space. I have no terrace. I'm going crazy. And so this notion of indoor, outdoor in terms of housing, of downtown shopping and malls being integrated with nature, with gardens, as Jewel demonstrates is possible, all this is reinforced by the experience of the pandemic. We are going to be rethinking retail. Retail will not be the same anymore. We don't see a turn or change in our approach. We see an intensification. The lessons of the pandemic have been, in a way, a reaffirmation of our architectural philosophy.
Tackling pandemic challenges while navigating uncharted territory.
This is very exciting for us.
Businesses have adapted to the restrictions brought by COVID-19. They've made plans for any fresh disruptions. Now it's time to think about what lies ahead. Deep tech startup Celestial have been working with telcos to improve last-mile internet connections.
This is our Centauri device. It uses our wireless laser communication technology to connect ultra-fast internet between two buildings without having to lay fiber optic cables in the ground.
Celestial has now set its sights on resolving connection bottlenecks between cities and continents by launching a space network. This will effectively replace the need for massive undersea fiber optic cables.
We are building a global telco out of space. The way we're doing that is by building a network of satellites in the lower Earth orbit, which are blanketing the planet. All of these satellites will be connected to each other with laser communication links, and they will be also connected back to the ground with laser communication links as well.
No one is nearly capable of getting to the speeds we can offer. We are 1,000 to 1,000,000 times faster than anything else that's been done before with satellites. And this is really going to truly unlock deep country connectivity. Any tier 2 city, village, town, civilized, any pockets of people that are there, we can just drop a laser link and give them really high-speed internet connection. Our first set of products for the satellite, we are aiming something around end 2023. And by 2025, certain parts of the world will get access to this technology.
F-Drones is also tackling a major milestone. It's been successful with flying beyond the visual line of sight. It's now going to try something new. F-Drone says this is the world's first commercial night drone delivery.
This is very exciting for us because it is important for us to be able to operate 24 hours a day, as many industrial applications in the world operate around the clock. AJ? Yeah.
The startup has been making daytime aerial deliveries for maritime logistics in Singapore since April. Now, they're venturing to do the same in night conditions. There is a lot riding on the delivery. F-Drones will be delivering a 3D printed lifting tool to the vessel at sea. 3D printing of parts is a game changer for the maritime industry. Parts can now be made lighter and produced on demand and close to where the vessels are located.
In Wilhelmsen, we're always exploring safe and reliable alternatives for last mile delivery for our 3D printed parts. And working with F-Drones has been very exciting, as they have a similar ambition as ourselves to offer a solution that is faster and better and greener.
Traditional means of sending supplies to ships and offshore platforms by boats or helicopters are really expensive, slow, and they produce a lot of CO2, more than 100 million tons of carbon dioxide every year. And our drone solution have the potential to help our customers save up to 80% of the cost, time, and carbon emissions.
The drone deliveries that we have done together with F-Drones have for us been proof of concepts, showcasing the future of supply chain. But we need to see that the drones can do longer distances and higher weights than they can today. When the drones are good enough to serve these needs, that will be a true game changer for the maritime industry.
7 minutes later, the delivery is completed to the vessel at sea. The drone can only deliver up to 5 kilograms over a maximum distance of 5 kilometers right now. F-Drones is now testing a prototype that can carry heavier packages over longer distances. This proprietary model can carry 5 kilograms over 50 kilometers. And F-Drones is building the world's first transition drone that will carry 100 kilograms over 100 kilometers.
Our focus is very much on wanting to develop a drone that can deliver 100 kilograms over 100 kilometers. And building the drone that can fly 50 kilometers is really just a part of the journey. Between now and June next year, we are targeting 1,000 test flights before we bring it to market. We will be focusing on sending supplies to ships for now. And that is very much because we believe that the market is large enough. And if we are able to build that brand, it would allow us to expand globally. We have set some goals beyond marine and offshore, for instance, like in the remote mining.
But innovating and carving out new markets is not just for new companies. Moshe Safdie, for example, started his architectural practice back in 1964. But his firm is still much sought after for landmark projects.
People look for us because they've seen what we've done at this stage in our career. We've been blessed by such a wide range of projects. We're totally unspecialized. Many clients think if I'm going to do a hospital, I got to go to a healthcare architectural firm. Absolutely not the case. What you need is a creative, good architectural firm. Doesn't matter if they've done 15 hospitals. When we do a hospital, we just went back to first principle. What would make a hospital a wonderful, efficient place to be? And people look at this hospital and say, it's a garden hospital. It's like full of landscape. It feels like a resort, doesn't feel like a hospital, and yet it's a very efficient machine for delivering healthcare at the same time.
But what's the best way for an established company to take the leap into the unknown?
If they can build the organizational capability from the top leaders to any architectural designers in the company, and then conceptually, it's possible as long as the company can keep the innovation momentum.
Managing key risks and going the distance in uncharted territory and uncertain times.